Sometimes our lives can change in a moment. We might ask ourselves, what's going on? Or why did this happen to me? Or even, God, where are you? One of those big events happened to our guest today, but our guest is not so much a guest as she is family. I want to welcome Rebekah Hill.
Thank you.
Many of you know Rebekah from our program, Catching the Light. And there's been some big changes in her life this year, and she wanted to share that story with you. And so we're going to give you an opportunity, Rebekah, to tell us what's been going on.
Well, it's a huge blessing to be able to share because there have been dark valleys and rough storms, but God has been faithful, and I get to tell of his faithfulness today. So
now you look a little bit different than people might remember you from Catching the Light, but there's a reason for that, and it's part of the story.
Yes.
So we'll get into that in just a moment, but why don't you tell us what you wanted to share?
So in May of this year, 2021, my world turned upside down.
Oh.
I'll skip the preliminary symptoms that led me to go in for a biopsy, but I was diagnosed with breast cancer in May of 2021.
Wow. And
that diagnosis, there's no easy way of hearing it, really. But as soon as my husband and I heard that diagnosis, the Lord is so good. He brought a story to my mind of John Wycliffe when he was really ill and everyone thought he was going to die. And
now he was one of the reformers?
He was.
Back in the, who knows what.
I should have looked to see, but back in the Middle Ages in England. And he was one of the ones to translate the Bible into English, one of the first. And the monks didn't like him for that and for some of the things he had said. And so when he seemed like he was going to be dying, they rushed to his bedside and urged him to recant the nasty things he had said about them and apologize for trying to translate the Bible into a language that people could read. And he looked at them and he quoted Psalm 118, verse 17. And that verse says, "I shall not die, but live and declare the works of the Lord." And sure enough, Wycliffe did recover from his illness, and he went on to finish his translation of the Bible. And he served the Lord for many years after that. But when my husband and I heard the diagnosis of breast cancer, that was the story in the verse that immediately popped in my mind. And it wasn't a verse, it wasn't a psalm I had committed to memory. I mean, I've read it several times, but that was the context that I had pretty much heard it in, was in that story.
Yeah. And
that verse just kept sticking with me. I shall not die, but live.
Did you make that your special verse with the Lord?
I did. And so that was the end of May of this year. And then June came, and with June came more tests because they wanted to find out just how far along this cancer had progressed to stage it. And we found out that it was a lot worse than we had initially thought.
So at first they thought it was not a big thing? And
at first they thought it was the less aggressive type. It was the ultrasound had shown just a few small tumors, and they thought, oh, this should be easy to take care of with surgery and minimal treatment. But there were some other reasons. They said, no, we need to do full,
more extensive.
More tests. And so when we finished those tests, by the time we finished those tests in late June of 2021, my cough, I had a cough that I couldn't shake, and it kept getting worse. And we figured out why, because the cancer was not only in my breasts, it was in my lungs, and it was in my bones.
That's not what you want to hear.
No, it was not. And it was getting to the point where it was really hard to breathe when I was upright. I was spending a lot of time laying down, talking. I couldn't even laugh anymore, Doug, because laughing would set off a coughing fit and I couldn't catch my breath. And for me, I mean, you know how much I love to laugh.
Oh yeah.
And it was a dark time. It really was. But that verse just kept coming in my mind, I shall not die but live. And the whole purpose of that is to declare the works of the Lord. And we told the church family here in Grants Pass, we told family and friends around the world actually, and people started praying, and I was just overwhelmed. It still brings tears to my eyes with the outpouring of love and prayers.
You know, I can attest to that. When everyone started hearing word, what was happening to you, it was like this whole church family just wrapped their collective
Yes.
arms around you and said, we're going to pray for you.
Yes.
And they have been diligently.
Oh, that's an understatement. One of the last Sabbaths I was felt up to going to church.
Yeah.
I walked in and they had the announcements on the screen, on the projector, yeah. And there was the announcement that the prayer ministry was asking those who wanted to pray to set their alarms for 8:05 every evening to pray for me and my family and to pray for healing. And as you can tell, sorry, I still am teary. But I can't tell you how many times people have told us, we pray for you every single night. One of the elders said that he was at a board meeting and they stopped at 8:05 to pray for me. And then the next night he was at prayer meeting and they stopped at 8:05 to pray for me. And the next night he was practicing music with the group and they stopped at 8:05 to pray for me. And that's been going on every night since then. And truly, that is the only reason I am still alive, is because of the prayers that have been going up. Wow. So that was June.
Can I insert something
Please.
here? You know, friends, if you don't have a church family, please consider looking to get it to one.
Yes.
Of course, we'd love to have you visit one of our Seventh-day Adventist churches in the area if you've never been. But having a family, a church family, people who care and love you, have love for you, is during a hard time is just so beautiful. And what Rebekah just described, you know, everyone wants. If you're in trouble, they want everyone to gather around and say, what can we do?
They show the heart of Jesus.
Yeah,
not just the hands, but the heart of
Exactly.
Jesus. Yeah. So then came July. Mm-hmm. And we had to decide what to do for treatment. And that's not an easy decision. Never. You know, each cancer is different. Yeah. No cancer is the same. No person is the same, and no type of cancer responds the same to the same treatments.
And you know, in the age of social media, you know that whenever somebody says that they're sick, you have 101 people who want to tell you this works or that works or try this, or, you know, and it can be overwhelming because everyone, what they're really saying to you is I love you and I care for you.
Yes.
But here you are as a patient trying to determine the best course of action for you, and it can be very overwhelming, can't it?
It can be.
Yeah.
I was very blessed to have. My husband loves research, and so he would take those recommendations and dig into them and see, okay, well, which types of cancer did that treatment work best on?
Yeah.
And so we just prayed, because the one who created me,
Mm-hmm.
the one who created natural remedies and science and all of this, he would know best how to fight this particular cancer. And you know, there were other aspects to this cancer that made it even more rare and more tricky. But we ended up with the combination of chemotherapy and some supplements. And we had to keep it simple because I didn't have the strength to do a whole lot. But in July of 2021, I started chemo, started all the treatments, and my cough got worse. And I ended up with a trip to the emergency room, and we found out that on top of the cancer in my lungs, I had pneumonia. And breathing was so difficult. I would get up to eat, and I would literally only have time to take a few bites before I would start coughing. And I would cough so much I couldn't catch a breath, and I'd have to go lay down for half an hour before I could catch a breath again. And during some of those coughing fits, they were so intense, I fractured some of my vertebrae.
Your ribs or vertebrae?
Ribs and vertebrae,
Really?
spinal column, yeah. As best the doctors could tell, that's what had fractured them because the cancer had already weakened them. And then the coughing just fractured in those areas even more.
Wow. Now, did that lead to more pain? Could you Could you feel that?
It was very painful. And during that time, I really struggled with the question of faith versus presumption.
Now, what do those words mean?
Good question.
Because our audience doesn't know.
So what is faith and versus what is presumption? Presumption being kind of the devil's, what's the word I'm looking for? Replacement for faith.
Yeah.
And how to tell the difference, because sometimes it's really hard.
We want to have faith, we want to have
Yes.
trust in God,
Yes.
but we don't want to have a presumptuous faith that lets us be careless and go out and say, well, the Lord's going to take care of me, I'm going to walk on the edge of this cliff.
Right.
That's
right. Or
presumption.
I'm going to try to, jump off the top of the tower and fly,
Yeah.
The angels are going to catch me.
Yeah.
No, that would be presumption. But in some ways it's easy to tell what the difference is between faith and presumption. But in this, maybe it's just me, but in going through that valley, that storm, that dark time, it made it difficult to see very clearly sometimes. And so then that verse, Psalm 118, verse 17, kept coming back, I shall not die but live.
Mm-hmm.
And I really struggled with whether I was being presumptuous to claim that verse, or whether maybe I was supposed to die. But as I struggled and I went to the Lord and I said, Lord, you know my heart, and you know I don't want to be presumptuous, but you also know that you gave me this verse. And you also know that there are so many people praying for me, and many of them were weak in faith. Maybe they were new Christians or Christians who just were honestly wondering, is God going to answer these prayers? Does he really still work miracles? And I said, Lord, your name is at stake. And I just can't help but believe that you're going to do something. You're going to do something big. And so I held on to that verse. And I know that the Lord is the only reason I made it through July, truly.
Now, there's still more to the story to be told.
Oh, yes.
And we're still in the midst of the story.
We are.
But let's take a short break. And when we come back, we can continue. But we do have to take a break.
Okay.
Okay. Friends, stay with us. We'll be right back with more of Rebekah's story.
Better Life Broadcasting is a viewer-supported Christian media ministry that offers streaming programming via apps on various devices. Please visit blbn.org to support Better Life or to get more information. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to Better Life Today. We've been going over Rebekah Hill's story of dealing with cancer. And Rebekah, you brought us through the initial discovery in May of 2021. We talked about what happened in June and July, and we were going to pick it up with August. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Tell our friends what happened as this progressed and you were trying to wonder, what does the Lord have in store for me?
Well, in August of 2021, the chemo brings on neuropathy.
Which is?
Neuropathy, it often goes along with diabetes as well, but with chemo, it affects the hands and the feet most frequently, and it did for me too. So my fingertips are numb and tingly when I do feel things. My feet also are extra sensitive to fabric. Wow. For me, it also meant that my mouth went numb, like I had been to the dentist.
Really?
And I lost most of my sense of taste. I could still taste bitter, unfortunately, but most of it I couldn't taste.
So was this a result of the chemo?
This was a result of the chemo. And
has your taste come back?
Yes. Okay. And they said most, if not all of it, will reverse eventually.
Okay.
Some of it I might still have for the rest of my life, but we'll see. It's just time will tell.
Yeah.
But basically, it's because the chemotherapy is attacking the nerves. Mm-hmm. And so that started happening more in August. And but I was seeing improvement in other areas. I was able to breathe easier. I was able to talk more. I was finally able to laugh again a little bit, a little bit. But there was one night in particular, I remember, I couldn't get comfortable. I couldn't fall asleep. My bones were just aching. It was a constant ache, and the pain meds hadn't touched it. And I just couldn't get comfortable enough to get to sleep.
Yeah.
And I started praying, and I said, Lord, I know it's kind of a little thing, but it really isn't. I said, can you please take the pain away enough so that I can go to sleep? I didn't even ask him to take it all away, just enough so I could get to sleep. And the next thing I knew after that, I was waking up, and it was almost time to get up.
Oh, wow.
And I had slept for several hours, and I had slept well. And as I woke up and I registered, I've slept, the next thought was, he answered my prayer. And then that little voice said, Rebekah, I'm answering the little prayers so that you will have faith that am also answering the larger one. Oh. Ask me for more so I can strengthen your faith more.
Oh, wow.
And so I began asking for more. I told my family and friends about that too, and they're all like, okay. So we started asking for no nausea when I went for the chemo infusions, and most of the time I didn't have nausea.
Praise the Lord.
Yes, yeah. And when I did, it was easily dealt with, and it was all of these things, and so many. We don't have time to tell all of the little miracles that the Lord did, but he wants us to ask for more. He wants to show us his love in the little things so that we trust him more with the bigger things.
That's right.
So that was August, but it wasn't over yet.
Nope.
So then September comes, and we're still in 2021.
Okay.
We were finally far enough through the first part of this treatment that my doctor wanted to order more tests. So I went through more scans and tests again to see what was happening in there. And we got the results just before the weekend, and it said that some of the tumors had shrunk, and the tumors in the bones had just proliferated, had just boom, exploded all over my spine and my skeletal system. And we were going into the weekend, and I said, Lord, this doesn't match with what I was feeling. The bone pain was decreasing somewhat, but it was decreasing, and I just don't understand.
What's going on?
Yeah, what's happening? And the Lord said, Rebekah, choose to praise me for the good news, and choose to trust me for what seems like bad news.
Oh, wow.
I said, okay. And so that's what we did that weekend. We praised him for the good, and we trusted him with the rest. And Monday, when I went back into the doctor's office, because I had to go every week on Monday, and so I went in and only to find out that things had been read wrong. They had compared the scans that they had just taken in September, they had compared them wrong to the wrong tests earlier on. And so the real results were that everything was shrinking. And the medical oncologist said he could even see where in the bones were starting to heal, which meant that the cancer was dead in that area.
Talk about night and day.
Yes.
You're going into the weekend and they're telling you this horrible news.
Yes.
You come out of the weekend and they say, oh, sorry, little mistake here.
Yes. That's okay. You can make more mistakes like that more often. That would be okay. So we chose to trust, and we were getting to the end of the chemotherapy infusions, which is what people typically think of when they think of chemo. And so that brought us to October of 2021.
Yeah.
And finishing the infusions and transitioning to the next stage of treatment, and beginning to count my blessings. Things are sort of starting to stabilize and calm down a little bit, and realizing just what the Lord has brought me through. I should not have lived through July. I should have died. There's no reason I'm still alive except that God answers prayer.
You know, just the other day you told me that, you know, I should have died earlier on, but I didn't want to, you know, bring it up. I didn't want to trouble you. How did you say? Didn't want to worry you or
Something
whatever.
like that.
I'm like, Rebekah, you were that bad off and you didn't want to worry us.
But it also was that I didn't realize entirely.
You didn't realize how bad it was?
I had this sense, you know, I very likely am going to die. Every so often I would just have this dark time of I don't know that I'm going to make it through. But whenever that happened, the Lord would bring other people along who were strong, saying, no, He's going to bring you through. He's given us peace. He's given us assurance. I've even had people tell me they were praying more for me than for their own children who were not walking with the Lord. I'm going, whoa.
They just had you on a red alert list.
Yes.
It was like, we have to.
Yes. But people around the world were storming the gates of heaven. And God has answered. God is answering. And it's not over yet, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm finally at a place physically where I have the strength and I have the breath to be able to give Him praise publicly. I need to do that, even though the storm isn't over yet, even though the miracle isn't completely finished yet. That's okay. To God be the glory, great things He has done, is doing, and has still promised to do.
And just for clarification, we are now recording this in the month of
November
2021.
Yes.
So, you know, folks, that's why she says the story's not done yet.
It's not done. I still have cancer.
Yeah.
I still have tumors. I'm still going through treatment. But, you know, in 2 Chronicles chapter 20, there's a story of Jehoshaphat and the kingdom of Judah going to war against some of their enemies. And they were being attacked, rather. And Jehoshaphat, he made a very unique decision.
Well, do you get extra soldiers out there? Did he, what did he decide to do?
He got extra people,
Yeah?
but they weren't soldiers.
They weren't.
They were singers.
He called on a choir?
He called on the choir. And he said, you need to go ahead of the army and praise.
Wow.
And 2 Chronicles 20, and specifically verse 22, says, when they began to sing and to praise, the Lord set ambushes against the people of Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir who had come against Judah, and they were defeated. When God's people began to praise, that's when the Lord did what He had promised. And He fought they walked onto the field and everyone was dead. They didn't have to fight at all in that battle.
The Lord fought for them.
The Lord fought for them.
Yeah.
And their act of praise, by faith of what He was going to do, praise for what He had already done and praise for what He was going to do, that was when the Lord said, okay, they're ready. I can step in now. And so through this experience, I've learned so many things. But 3 things I wanted to bring out.
Okay.
And the first is the power of praise. The Lord inhabits the praises of His people. Sorry, I just threw that verse in there. I forget the reference. But if the Lord inhabits the praises of His people, that means the devil can't stand it. Because the devil can't be in God's presence.
Doesn't want to be there. No.
So praise is power. It is powerful. And the next lesson was the power of prayer. Because truly, I'm only alive today because of prayer and because the Lord has answered prayer. And I also learned that there's a connection between those two, of prayer and praise, because the Lord is worthy of praise regardless of how He answers prayer. His goodness and His faithfulness are not dependent on the answer that we seem to get.
Yeah.
At all. You know, during this, I had one dear friend of ours who's a pastor back east tell my husband and I, he said, you know, we're asking for healing, and the Lord's answer is yes. We just don't know when. Whether it's before the resurrection or at the resurrection. But His answer is yes. I thought, you know, I like that perspective.
Yeah. The Lord has you in
like
His
that.
hand,
Yes.
one way or the other.
He does.
Sometimes some of us will have to fall asleep in the sleep of death. It'll be as a moment, and then He'll raise us to be glorified in new bodies. No more pain, no more suffering, no more worry.
Yeah.
And but some people He chooses to raise them back to health then, before. And of course, we want that for you, but we know that either way, you're in good hands, right?
Exactly. I'm in the hands of the greatest physician of all.
Yes.
And the third lesson is that God is faithful. You know, I just have to tell our Better Life family that when the sun is shining and life is beautiful, God is faithful. And when the storms come and your little ship seems like it's going to sink, God is still faithful. And when it seems like every breath is going to be your last, our God is still faithful. He is so faithful. It doesn't matter what is happening. He is faithful. And if anyone has questioned that, let this story be the testimony that you need to hear, that God is faithful. If I had died, God would still have been faithful.
Rebekah, you praise the Lord. You've held
worthy
him
of
up
praise.
before the people. And even in the midst of your story right now, you praise him. We want to thank you for sharing your story with us. And friends, if you'd like to contact Rebekah, or maybe just send her an encouraging word, she's created an email that you can do that. You can reach her at awalkingmiracle2021@gmail.com. That's awalkingmiracle2021@gmail.com. I know she'd appreciate your prayers for her and her family, and we thank you for joining us for this special episode of Better Life Today. God bless.